Welcome to the 2010 Candidate Forums featuring elections for local, state, and congressional offices, recorded live from the B.W. Simpkins Center at BCC's Cocoa campus. These forums are made possible through a partnership between Brevard Community College, Florida Today, the League of Women Voters, and the Space Coast Tiger Bay Club. And now, tonight's forum.
Good evening and welcome to this, the fifth in a series of candidate forums here in the B.W. Simpkins Fine Arts Auditorium at Brevard Community College's Cocoa campus. I'm J.B. Comp, President-elect of Tiger Bay Club, and we're in partnership with BCC, Florida Today, and the Space Coast League of Women Voters to bring you these informative discussions. Tonight we'll be featuring the three candidates for District 24 Florida State Senate. And before I introduce you to the candidates, let me explain the format for tonight's forum. There'll be a 2-minute opening statement by all three of our candidates, followed by questions from the audience, the live studio audience here in the B.W. Simpkins Auditorium. I'll direct those on a rotating basis to each of the candidates. They'll have a minute to respond to those questions and an optional 30-second rebuttal opportunity. Following the final candidate response, the candidates will be given a 1-minute closing statement opportunity. This question will now go back to the senator for his first 1-minute response. Would you favor a constitutional amendment for a balanced budget?
Absolutely, I would, and I have voted for a resolution requesting that the federal government have a balanced budget, as well as even if it takes it a constitutional amendment, a constitutional convention for placing in our federal budget that we have a balanced budget amendment. We have a balanced budget amendment in the state of Florida. We cannot spend beyond our abilities to spend our revenues. So I strongly and wholeheartedly support a balanced budget amendment.
Absolutely would support. I would support a balanced budget for the federal government. The state already has one in theory. Senator Altman has also spent time in the legislature. The state of Florida is not balancing its budget. It's basically taking money from other sources. When you analyze a balance sheet, you look at the retained earnings or the surplus in the case of the state. We see that that's declining every year. That's the proof that we are not balancing our budget. We're using these funds, we're borrowing money, and we're calling ourselves in a financial disaster zone at this point, or a financial emergency for the state, when in fact our legislature just can't stop spending your money.
Well, I hope it wouldn't take us to a constitutional amendment to actually have our representatives act in a financially responsible way, but it may. And if that's the case, I would be in full support of it.
Now, before we get into the rebuttal round, gentlemen, I've been a cream puff when it comes to the time. Several of you have seen the stop and have gone far beyond it. I'm going to remind you vocally now if you do that again, just to give you more time. Now, 30-second rebuttal. You, sir. Senator?
Florida has a AAA bond rating, one of the highest bond ratings of any state in the union. And the reason we do is because we've been fiscally responsible. We have a balanced budget. We have adequate reserves. Our bond rating exceeds most states. So we do have some pretty tough fiscal responsibility in the state of Florida, and you only need to look to Moody's or the other bond rating agencies for the proof of that.
Well, that certainly surprises me. 3 years ago, the state brought in a record number of dollars in its revenue. 3 years later, we're in a financial emergency. It doesn't add up. What we need to do here in the state of Florida is stop spending. We need to balance our budget for real, and we need to take the burden off of the taxpayers who for the last 2 years have experienced a pretty dramatic downturn in their own personal finances.
We also need to not rob our pension funds and our set-aside funds that are in trusts. We have a bad habit of taking money out of trusts that aren't supposed to be touched in order to balance our budget. This is a practice that is deceiving to you, the public, and it's deceiving for us in the long run of having an economic viable future.